All right, everybody, welcome back for week 8. We're so glad to be with you again this evening and that you're continuing your journey to make disciples. Last week we talked quite a bit about the idea that we need to be intentional about looking where we are and also where the people in our lives are. And Jim challenged you all to go back and make a list of those people that God might be calling you to disciple and how that might look. And so hopefully you've had some time praying over that list, and we'd like you to maybe not share the names necessarily with your group, but talk about what it was like to pray that way and what God might be revealing on your heart and how you can do that. But tonight we've got some more content, and it's all about how we share our faith. And so I want to let Jim to introduce that with us.
Discipleship is not about arguing or trying to beat people up with the Bible. I don't want you to be aggressive and rude and disrespectful. Sometimes people knock on your door, ring your doorbell, and you open the door and they say, if you died right now, would you go to heaven or hell? That's kind of scary. We're not talking about that. When we're talking about sharing our faith, we're talking about being able to give a witness, give a testimony about what Jesus means to you. And for some of you, that may be a dramatic testimony, but maybe for some of you that grew up in the church, you're always a good kid, you went through confirmation class, you were baptized, you joined the church, you don't have an Apostle Paul kind of testimony. That's okay, but you have a testimony that's particularly yours.
That's right.
And so tonight we're going to talk about what Jesus means to you and how that can impact in sharing with someone who doesn't know Jesus and someone who's an infant. Sharing not only your personal witness, but helping them build habits like daily devotions, Bible reading, prayer, and all those things. So that's the content for this evening. Pay close attention to page 132 and the whole lesson about how to explain the plan of salvation. So we'll come back and check in with you later on.
That's right. We hope in your discussion, again, as Jim said, just remembering that each one of you have a story. I think one of the coolest things that's always happened when we've taught this is that around the room, everyone has a different story of how they came to faith. And again, like I said, it may not be a Blues Brothers moment where the light shined through the ceiling, but you have a story. And so God has done something in some way to become alive and real in you. And that's what we're talking about how to share that tonight. And we're looking forward to getting back with you after your time of discussion. All right, friends, so we hope you had a really great discussion tonight, kind of shaped around the idea of sharing faith. My own personal story growing up, I grew up in the church. I've been a part of the Methodist church as long as I can possibly remember. And I remember for the longest time after I gave my life to Christ thinking I didn't have a story. And so this particular chapter, when I went through it the first time, really, I had to wrestle with it. And what I've come to realize is what Jim said earlier, we all have a story. Jesus has done something in your life or you wouldn't be here. Unless someone drug you in the room and chained you to a chair right now, you have a story of what God is doing or has done in your life. And that's what we want to challenge you to be able to share in a way that you can make your story come alive in someone else, that you can share how God has worked in you so that they can see how God can work in them. I know Jim says this, and I've said it oftentimes too. We may think of ourselves as really good preachers and stand in the pulpit and give really great sermons, but at the end of the day, your story is going to impact somebody else's life 100 times more than anything else that we can say from the pulpit. And so we want to make sure that we emphasize with you the importance of being able to share your story. Isn't that right, Jim?
Absolutely. And it's your story.
That's right.
It's a personal story. It's a story that no one can challenge because it's your own story. And that's so important. It's so compelling to have your story. We call it the elevator speech because it's just like a 3-minute testimony of what Jesus means to you.
That's right. When I teach this to people at our church, I talk about it in a way that you would take your story and try to boil it down to 3 minutes. Now, we know that you could probably take your story, some of you, and talk for an hour about it, but we call it an elevator speech because it's an opportunity where someone opens up the door for you to share something, and you have to do it quickly, and we have to do it succinctly. So what we want to challenge you all to do is to think about your story in 3 ways. Think about being able to share 1 minute about your life before you came to know Christ, 1 minute about your life, about how you came to know Jesus and how He came alive to you, and then 1 minute about how your life is now, how you're different because of the way you follow Christ. And again, if you can get those 3 minutes down and think about your story in that way, when someone opens the door for an hour-long conversation, you're going to be prepared because you know where you want to go with them. And I love what Jim said, and I hope you all heard this. It's your story, right? You can refute facts, or you can challenge the dynamics of logic. But when you say, this is how God is alive to me, and this is how I've experienced Him, that's your story. And it's going to impact people's lives when you can come to a place where you can share that. So we hope this has been a time that's been helpful for you. Go home, practice your elevator speech. Maybe when we get back together next week, you can try to share that with someone. But we hope that you'll take this time to practice, and we can't wait to see you again next week.